the Remi Stevens Show.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the Remi Review. I'm not hopeful that camera 3 is going to keep operating for very long. It already said low battery and we just started, so that's not a good sign. Now, a little bit about the show, just from studying television and how people present themselves and any kind of media really, the idea seems to be that you put your best foot forward, that your most exciting things go right at the beginning to catch people's attention. Here on the Remi Review, we do things a little differently. We put the least interesting information at the beginning of the show. I tell you to send me an email. I talk about the Dominaton plaque that no one really knows what it is exactly. All the things that just confuse the viewer and make you leave. So maybe this is in the works. We will try and rework the show around that principle, putting your best foot forward instead of your worst foot, which is what we're currently doing. Okay, anyway.
World.
The myth of overpopulation. Now a little setup, all right? You've been watching the news, even the mainstream news. You're hearing that every country in the world has a debt. And now even the so-called have nations are being asked to work harder and to pay more taxes to help bail out the supposed have-not nations. And of course people in the have-not nations as well, austerity budgets, lower wages. And it all comes from numbers on computer screens, because there's no actual reason why we're all cinching our belts, why we're all tightening our budgets everywhere. There's no explanation for this. It's just happening because of the corrupt, backwards economic system we have. It's not because we're running out of things. So what are the circumstances? What are the outcome? What are the circumstances? What's the outcome? You have to look at what the outcome of these measures are, these austerity measures. Well, this is how colonialists enslaved the third world. This is what they did. They went in, they created a bunch of phony debts for the countries, they acquired the assets of the country, all the important land, any treasures and gold and stuff, and the colonial powers took all this stuff, took ownership of the land, and now they restrict the people's ability to prosper because they from their international position, they still own the land in these countries and they own all the assets. So the people there become completely dependent because they're unable to produce for themselves. The international companies own the land, they put them to work on the land, don't give them any of the profit from the resources, and don't allow them to own things in their own country that they could create their own production from. So everything is owned externally from your country. There's no sovereignty, there's no national control of the resources. It's externalized. That's what the colonial powers did to establish these third world countries. And now they're doing that here. They're doing the same thing to the countries where these rich colonialists started from. Now they're using the same tactics on the people in their own countries. The middle class in their own Western nations are now getting this treatment as well. And so what are they demanding? They're demanding austerity. Okay, so you're going to cut public services, you're going to cut wages, you're going to restrict money that way. But I mean, that can only go so far. There's only so much you can cut. So finally, and this will be the final answer to all these debts, are that nations need to back up the debts, that they're going to have to back it with something, because we've just been allowing banks, central banks in countries, private banks, we've been letting them all just print money out of nowhere, and we've gotten into a situation where we issue more cash to pay for the debts that we already have, and then we issue more cash to pay for those debts. But it's not a sustainable system. At some point, the money has to be backed by something. So they're going to start asking all these nations, and it's going to start with Greece, it's going to start with Spain and Ireland. They're going to ask them to back these debts with something. And so the nations will be required to put up land. They'll have to put up the nation's gold reserves. They'll have to put up ownership of resources in the country for sale. And who's going to buy it? Well, the only people that have any money, corporations and international bankers.
That's
this is
so
all
not right.
designed to get nations to give up their assets. That's what we're talking about. It's not about austerity, it's not about cutting budgets, because that, again, is just down to a system of numbers. It's not real world things. The real world things are the resources in your country, and those are going to be stolen by international bankers if you let them keep running the system of debt piled on top of debt. And I mean, in its basic essence, it doesn't add up. Everybody can't be in debt. You can't have a system where everyone is in debt. There has to be someone who has more, who's able to lend and create these debts. If everyone owes a debt, they must owe it back to someone. And this is where things get confusing, because you start thinking, oh, do we owe it?
I don't know
do
what
we
you're
owe it to a
saying.
country? Is this money owed to China or India or something? Is it owed to, you know, an international banking cartel? No, it's not owed to any of those. This is a simple matter of class. There are rich people and there are poor people. Now, the difference between rich nations and poor nations is changing. Absolutely, it's changing so that rich nations are getting poorer and poor nations are getting richer, so that there's a leveling going on. But within every country in the world, you're seeing the rich get richer and the poor get poorer. And this is going on everywhere, especially in the so-called have nations, that the middle class and the poor in those nations are losing money like crazy. And the rich in those countries are getting astronomically rich. So you're seeing a massive fluctuation, a giant gap in wealth happening around the world. Not nations, people, rich people versus poor people. Huge gap, always growing, every country. And you can see the outcome of this in some very simple statistics. The population of the world grows by 1.5% a year. And it's actually a number that's shrinking. So the amount that the population of the planet grows per year is becoming a smaller and smaller percentage every year. It's barely over 1% and it's shrinking. Now, you think of inflation, this number that we've been taught for as long as my life, we've been taught that there's this standard number of 3% for inflation. Now, if the population of the world is growing by 1%, why would the costs of things grow by 3%? And 3%, 3% is a joke. When you count in cost of living, you count in everything else that affects inflation and the soaring of prices. 3% is a joke. Inflation is much, much higher than that. Look at your gas bill, look at your grocery bill, and you know that inflation is way more than 3%. But it's all believable if you can convince people of the myth of overpopulation. If you truly believe that we are an exploding population and that we're chewing through our resources and that we're not going to have enough left, then sure, people could be convinced that the prices go up. People could be convinced that supply stops. That's the madness involved in this. Here we are in Canada. This is the bread basket of the world. No one grows as much wheat as us. And you know what? If the food supply were to stop or to be seriously restricted in Canada, people would probably accept it. They'd go, oh, well, yeah, well, it's overpopulation. There's too many people in the world, so not enough food left over. Oh, well, I guess they're going to cut supply. They're going to cut off my food, but what do? The world's overpopulated. But it's all bunk. the world is not overpopulated.
Yeah, bring the truth, man.
Just a quick run on the numbers here. If you took the population density of Manila in the Philippines, which is the densest city in the world, if you were to take that population density and expand it over the country of England, not the UK, just England, you could fit 7 billion people into England. You could fit the entire population of the world into one small country, England. Do you really think the world is overpopulated if we could fit the entire population of the world into one small island country? Not even the whole island, just part of it, just England.
News fail.
Okay, so news, I'm going to talk a little bit about The Economist I covered this time. I just looked them up online. The magazine, The Economist. Now they did a quick little rundown on working and hours worked, productivity, and corruption. Now the mainstream news is always trying to sell you this idea that nations that are having problems are having that problem because people are lazy, people don't work hard enough, there isn't enough productivity, people don't want to put that extra gumption in, they don't want to give it their all. And they'll say that about Greece. Oh, those people in Greece are lazy, and that's why they're having austerity measures. That's why they have massive debts. Nothing to do with the fact that international bankers sold them lousy investments that went international bankers sold them lousy investments that were corrupt and stole the money of the nation. Nothing said about that. No, it's always the workers' fault. And here in The Economist, they're trying to give you a level head because sometimes in the mainstream you may see this statistic that people in Greece work longer hours. Okay, but The Economist wants to reassure you that they may work longer hours, but they're less productive. So this conjures an image of the Homer Simpson type character sitting in the factory. He's stealing pencils at the end of the day. He's got his boots up on the desk. This is what they're trying to sell you on in Greece, as though factory work. This is what they're trying to sell you on in Greece. This is why they're having problems in Greece, because they're too lazy. They're not working hard enough. But you really got to ask yourself, if the reason that we're running out of supply is because of overpopulation, how is working harder going to solve that? Isn't working harder just going to chew through the supply faster? Isn't that going to make things worse if you work harder? Shouldn't we have a system where globally we're scaling back the work? If you believed in overpopulation, if you believe that supply is running out, the last thing you should want to do is become more productive, because then you're just pushing us faster towards shortage. But the bottom line, there is corruption. There's corruption right at the top. There's systemic corruption. That's what the corruption is. There are people at the top, tons of them, who do absolutely nothing, who just pilfer money out of other people's productivity. That's the corruption. It's not Homer Simpson stealing pencils at the end of the day. It's not somebody putting their boots up and not working hard at their pointless job. Working harder at your pointless job isn't going to save humanity from anything. It isn't going to supply anything.
Consume!
This time on the show, we're going to look at some Heinz ketchup. Now the bottle, I don't know, you're supposed to hold it like this, I guess, because they want you get ketchup at the bottom. This has got to be the worst bottle design I have ever seen. It doesn't have nutritional facts either, so I can't even talk about it. But I will show this. Is interesting that it says ingredients, tomato paste is first, and then it says tomato paste, and then brackets, made from fresh, ripe tomatoes. And then the second ingredient is sugar. Liquid sugar. Now the reason that they've put it this way, I mean, saying made from fresh, ripe tomatoes, that doesn't mean anything. That's not of course it's made from ripe tomatoes. It's ketchup. What the hell, were you going to use a carrot? Yeah, tomato paste is made from tomatoes, thanks. The reason that they've put this on here is so that they didn't have to put sugar on the first line. It looks like, if you just glance at this quickly, like, oh, there's fresh ripe tomatoes, there's tomato paste, there's a bracket, and then there's some liquid sugar. So liquid sugar is a little further down the list. But really, this thing is loaded with sugar. I wish I could show you the calorie content. They probably tell you to take a tiny squirt, a tiny little squirt, so that the calories look like they're really low, despite the fact that people get their French fries, they get their burgers, and they squirt the ketchup all over the place. It's loaded with it. Sugar, sugar, sugar. That's what this is. It's sugar. Fresh ripe tomatoes. And the bottle drives me crazy. They started doing this recently with a lot of condiments. It's opaque. You notice that? This is not full. This is like, there's almost nothing in here. Almost nothing in here. But they make the bottle the color of the product, and they make it opaque. So you look at this, it always looks full. This always looks like a full container. And it's because when you get down near the bottom, it's got all these weird cuts in the side. All this stuff makes the bottle smaller, but makes it look just as big. That's why they do all of this. And they do countless, even this little shaving here. See that little bit of flatness? They spend countless hours studying psychology to learn how to make the perfect bottle that looks bigger than it actually is. And the reason this is the perfect bottle, because when you get near the bottom, ketchup is going to get stuck on all these weird little edges, all these little lips. Ketchup is going to get stuck there, and you're not going to consume it. And you can't see it because the bottle's opaque, so you don't even know that it's still in there. You can shake it, but it's going to get caught all over the place. So when you finally throw this out, it's going to have all kinds of ketchup in it. And that's the purpose. That is the people that we work for. They want you to throw out goods. That's the most profitable thing that you can do as a consumer for the company, is buy it and throw it out, because then the need is still there. You're going to need more ketchup. And so if they can manage to throw in a couple lips in here and get some ketchup stuck in this and have you throw it out in the garbage, that's perfect for them. That's exactly where they want to be. It's quite brilliant, whatever corrupt bastard designed this bottle and is contributing to damning humanity to, a world full of garbage. They're doing a good job. This is a very well designed bottle, designed to make you waste ketchup.
Culture.
The cultural report review with Jim's reviews. This time on the show, this is an intro. I'll give it that. I'm going to introduce something, but I don't know what to store for. I honestly have no idea. So the very fact that I'm speaking to you now is of no consequence and has no actual purpose for you or for me. But it is an introduction, and this is the Remi Review.
Too hot. Better. It's like AAA average. I'm tripping over adages. Come and refresh my bandages. Got cuts up from last night's storm.